hosts. I'm Diane Bortoletto.
And I'm Monique Ciccardo.
Let's do it.
Hello, and welcome to And Away We Go F1 podcast, a Formula One podcast that goes beyond the track limit to talk about travel, food and lifestyle surrounding the sport. My name's Diane Bortoletto and I'm a pre-Drive to Survive fan, and today I'm in Melbourne in Victoria.
And I'm Monique Ciccardo, your post-Drive to Survive fan. And once again, I'm sitting in actually kind of sunny Stavanger in Norway.
Oh, hi, Mon. Good to see you. We've got a really special episode this week. We're joined by the CEO of Motorsport Australia, Sunil Vohra, who has just finished, the biggest event of the Australian motorsport calendar when we're recording this podcast. So thank you so much, Sunil, for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Very nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sunil, firstly, people who aren't ingrained in motorsport, they might not know what Motorsport Australia is or what it does. So, give us a quick rundown of what Motorsport Australia is all about.
Yeah, sure. So we're the governing body for four-wheeled motorsport in Australia. So what does that mean? We work as what's called the ASN, or the Authorised Sporting Network of the FIA, which is the international governing body of all motorsport. And what that means is that we help develop the rules and regulations for how motorsport can be conducted fairly and as safely as possible here in Australia. That also extends for us into things like development programs and participation programs to help the sport to continue to grow and thrive across all levels. So we've got a relatively small but very high energy team that works across different levels of capabilities, whether it's about rules or officiating, but also helping to support the enormous network of volunteer officials that we have that help motorsport run each week at different levels of events in different disciplines all around Australia.
Wow. So how big is the team? How big is the team at Motorsport Australia that does all of that?
In terms of our actual staff within the organisation,
yeah,
we're about 48 people at the moment. So it's a reasonable size, but not too big. But we're really supported by an enormous volunteer network. And motorsport is one of those activities and one of those sports that is powered by a volunteer community. And those volunteers work across different roles around supporting events. I think currently we have just over 12,500 registered volunteers working with us.
Wow.
They will be at everything from a local club event, a hill climb, a gravel rally, through to state level racing, national competition. And at the Australian Formula One Grand Prix that you just referenced, we had 996 volunteer officials there helping work and support.
Wow.
Fantastic volunteer workforce, which is really the heart and soul of motorsport.
Yeah.
Sure is.
So how does one become a volunteer for Motorsports Australia then? If you've got so many volunteers, I assume there has to be some sort of vetting process, or you have to kind of understand what you're going into as a volunteer. So what's the process of
training?
Yeah, what's the process of doing that? I'm just asking for a friend myself.
It's a good question. We make it relatively easy. There's a link on our website. People can go to motorsport.org.au and there's a lot of information there about how to become an official. There's a simple registration process. There's a short education module to participate in. And then it's about how they get underway with officiating. All of our instructors use a buddy system initially to be able to help new entrants into officiating to get to learn the ropes. And then there's different pathways people can follow depending on what they are actually interested in and different roles. It's a very broad set of roles and different skill sets around officiating. It can be around the circuit. It can be around pit lane. It can be around technical aspects like scrutineering in terms of are the vehicles complying with the regulations, or it can be through what we call our appointed officials pathway, which is up into race control, where you have have folks such as the race director or the deputy race director or the driving standards advisor. You go for quite a while listing all the names of different roles that we have. There are many options, and people do tend to sort of pick a path as to what's interesting to them, and they create communities and clubs and things that you can join because it's an unbelievably social group of folks. Often the same folks come and meet at events, so it's very much a community that enjoys each other's company. And they get to go and be a part of motorsport each week. And as you can see, as you could probably tell, it would often be with the best seat in the house, given how close they are to the action.
I've always wondered how people do that. or how they get into being an official there and standing on the side of the track and doing all the things that you do. I've always looked at them and gone, gosh, that'd be so cool. How do I do that? Now I know.
Yeah, when I worked at Rally Australia, there were 2,000 officials on that World Rally Championship event. It was a much bigger event, geographically speaking, than a Grand Prix, which is at a circuit. And it just always astounded me how much they gave to the sport, how much of their time they would do so many hours. Yeah, because motorsport really is a sport fueled by passion, and that's just evident in every volunteer. The volunteers that I thought had the best gig at Rally Australia were the ones they used to have to get comments from the drivers. Like the drivers would stop straight after a stage and they'd run up to the window with a little recording device and ask them questions. How was the stage? How was the car? You're a bit slow here. Did you have an issue? That kind of thing. And then someone else would type up those quotes really quickly and send that through to the media centre where I was, and then that would be disseminated as like one of the coolest gigs ever.
Yeah.
One of the things that we notice also is that just the diversity of folks who come to volunteer to be officials, it's changing a lot. It's really reflecting the popularity of the sport, that we're seeing a huge amount of people coming with an interest in the sport who are coming into seeing volunteering as the way of being able to access and enter the sport. At the Grand Prix that we recently had, our youngest official was 14 years of age.
Wow.
With parents and family. There were husband and wives teams. There were lots of different groups of friends who would come. One of our corporate partners had a team from their executive team that came and did.
Oh, that's cool.
Partner on the circuit.
That is cool.
Our oldest officials would have been in their 80s, and some of them were chalking up their 40th Australian Grand Prix because they started at the first one of the modern era, which was 1985 in Adelaide, and they'd done every one since. So we had a whole group of people, 21 actually, who had done 40 Grand Prix with us. 27% of volunteers were women, which is a big change from the past where it was very much male dominated, as you can imagine. So, really pleasing to see that it's become an avenue for people to with an interest in the sport to say, well, that's the way that I can become part of it and come and join us now.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, one of the things that we've discussed repeatedly with our guests is the growth of motorsport the growth in interest in motorsport across all categories of people, all different groups and cross sections of people. And I think one of the biggest areas of growth has been in females, in women. Especially women from the ages of 16 to 30, and it's evident across so many different aspects of the sports. I mean, we've just had 2 Australians that have been accepted into Formula Academy, Joanne and Ava. And for us, we talk about this repeatedly because Formula Academy is so exciting to us because it just shows the interest and the potential for women in motorsport. I assume you know these two girls, women, really well.
Know them well. Part of a lot of our activities over the weekend. Ava was all the way from Tuesday before the Grand Prix. She was doing some work with us, and she actually helped launch our Motorsport Australia Gold program, which has been running on a soft launch basis for a little while. It's about introducing motorsport as part of STEM education into the junior middle school curriculum in Victoria and New South Wales, and then we're going national with it.
Love that.
We did a launch here in Melbourne, where I'm based and where the national head office for Motorsport Australia is. We did a launch at a local primary school with a group of Year 5 students, and Ava came along, spoke to the kids. So did Todd Hazelwood, Bathurst winner from last year. The kids just loved speaking to actual race drivers.
They would.
And the way that they were able to use the motorsport exercises as a way of engaging in science, technology, engineering and mathematics curriculum, the teachers loved it as well, because the vice principal of the school spoke to us about how engaged the students were and what a fantastic program it was. But you can come back to your original point, Monique's right. There's be able to have a young female professional race car driver there and speaking to the class and to the young students. They really get to see what is possible through motorsport. Yes. They can see what they can achieve. The old adage of, you can see what you want to be. And Ava speaks incredibly well about her journey. She speaks about the challenges, but also the opportunity of F1 Academy and having that platform to potentially use it as a springboard to further her career to hopefully the very top echelon of the sport.
Oh, I get goosebumps.
I know, it's so exciting. But speaking of which, Sunil, in your opinion, none of us can predict the future, but in your opinion, how long will we have to wait before we see a female driver on the F1 grid?
Hopefully not too long. I think what we are seeing now is the structural platforms that help overcome some of the obstacles that have existed in the past. And there certainly have been obstacles around opportunity, and particularly when we talk about getting to Formula One, about funding, the ability to be able to fund a junior pathway through the motorsport pyramid. So the FIA pyramid is F4, F3, F2, F1. Now, not every F1 driver will do all of those categories, but they'll usually do something. I think F1 Academy is a very important step in helping create that environment along that pathway to have the right people seeing their talents and their capabilities, but also most critically, it's seat time in the right types of vehicles. The more time you're in the vehicle, the better you go. I think there's no reason why a woman should not get to Formula One, and structurally now, and pathways are still hard. It's still like there's only 20 Formula One seats. I think Oscar Piastri says it quite well. Of the last 5 F2 champions, up until this year, he was the only one to have got to Formula One. It will be a great day when there's a woman in it.
Oh, it'd be a great day. And imagine if that driver's Australian as well. I mean, that'd have to be a national public holiday, surely.
Considering what we do have public holidays for, I would absolutely agree. And I think per capita, Australia has the highest national representation on the F1 Academy grid with 2 of the 18 drivers.
Amazing.
Here's hoping, fingers crossed.
We have really good representation across all of the categories, I think. Weren't we supposed to have a Formula 2 driver this year as well?
Yeah, so Christian Mansell had a drive with Roden with F2, which he'd absolutely earned. For reasons he's noted as his personal reasons, he's just left that seat for this year. For this first race, we're hoping to see him back on the F2 grid because he's a fantastic talent, really fast, capable junior driver, one of the very best in the world. The other very significant in the junior category is James Waldron in F3. James has had a fantastic career through karting and through to the elite level of the motorsport and made the big sacrifices in living overseas and working to be able to try and get onto the F3 grid, which he's been able to do, hoping he can build momentum over the course of the year and see if he can propel that to an F2 or a reserve driver role, things like that.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of Australian talent around at the very top level of the sport. We're kind of punch above our weight considering the size of our population and how far away we are.
And the sacrifices that all these Australian drivers have to make to get to these positions, because like you said, we're so far away from the main action. So they've got to uproot their lives and get themselves over to Europe to
not just them, often their families and everything like that.
Yeah.
That's huge. It's huge for a family to say, all right, well, let's move to Europe on a 14-year-old's wish to be a Formula One driver one day.
Yeah.
And we all know how often kids chop and change, but obviously there must be something there for families to take that huge step.
I mean, quite frankly, moving to Europe is fabulous.
It's not so bad. But speaking of sacrifices and moving overseas, does Motorsport Australia help fund, sponsor drivers looking to take those steps, or does Motorsport? Are you in a position? Is it your role, or?
Yeah, I think that's really the right question. Is it our role? Essentially, we're a not-for-profit member organisation. We're funded by the members' funds. Is it appropriate for us to invest in certain drivers in order to be able to try and ease the pathway to the elite level? We don't currently do that. I think there are other things, though, that we can do around creating support for the high talent, high achievement pathway through to the elite level, and particularly around bringing and trying to engage and support those drivers as they look to raise funds, they look to engage commercial partners to be able to do that. And there are much more innovative platforms and mechanisms to raise funding these days than the old model of personal sponsorship, stickers on the car, things like that. There's lots more innovative ways of doing it. There's a whole field around the commercialization of talent coming through. I mean, you see it in other sports, certainly applies for us here in motorsport. I think for us, though, the predominant focus for funds that Motorsport Australia has to invest in the sport is around early stage participation, pathways into the sport, to have more and more people be able to show an interest in the sport, to be able to find a way in, and in a way that made sense for them to enjoy their experience and want to stay when they arrive. And I think those are the things through those development pathways, education programs, particularly programs targeting parts of the community that have been underrepresented in motorsport, traditionally, like girls, women, cultural diversity, ethnicity, things like that, that we can help to provide ways into the sport. I think that makes more sense for us currently.
Yeah. Speaking of trying to increase diversity in motorsport in general, what kind of development programs does Motorsport Australia facilitate or endorse?
So we do facilitate quite a few. We've actually just in the last 6 or 12 months done a little bit to actually increase our capacity to support development programs. Our biggest and perhaps most well-known development program is Girls on Track. Girls on Track is an FIA initiative started a few years ago. It came from Susie Wolf, who was Formula Williams test driver and started the Dare to Be Different program back in 2016, 2017, 2018, thereabouts. Ended up becoming the FIA Girls on Track program. And obviously we know Susie now is heading F1 Academy, so continuing her fantastic work around supporting pathways for women. So Girls on Track is run by a lot of the FIA and ASNs around the world. I think, if I can be parochial for a moment, it's well acknowledged that the Australian program is the best in the world. It's one of the biggest since 2018. We've put more than 3,200 girls through our Girls on Track program. Over 700 went through in 2024. We have 3 different tiers of the program for younger girls to be able to come in sort of 12 years of age and thereabouts who have an interest, just to bring them to a motorsport event and show them around as to what happens. They hear from some people at the event, what are the different roles, what do people do, what are the opportunities. And then for the older tier, the sort of 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old tier, there's the Pathways program, which is really about saying, how do we harness your interest and what you might be doing with education and really hard code a pathway for you into the sport, either to continue to do as an interest and as a hobby, or, and ideally, a pathway where you make motorsport your career. That's really exciting for us. So the ability for us to connect that interest with specific pathways into being part of the motorsport economy, being part of the entire ecosystem, and just showing that the opportunity in motorsport, well, driving the cars is the bit that gets all the attention, but actually there's just a fraction of the opportunity in motorsport. It really is an engineering and data exercise before to a racetrack, and all those skills and all those capabilities.
We've actually spoken to someone, he was working in catering.
Jason Best.
Yeah, Jason Best. He worked for the Mercedes F1 catering, and it was so fascinating, and it was such a good conversation because, as you were saying, the drivers get all the attention when it comes to motorsports. So to have a real tangible program or like a real
somewhere to go to find information and
a linear course to align your interests with something tangible that you can see and go, oh my gosh, I'm really good at maths. I could actually be an engineer. I could actually be this. And I think that's absolutely wonderful.
That's my niece in year 12. She's in the top 2% of maths in Victoria. Like, she's a total brainiac. She's aiming for the top 1%, might I add. She's very competitive as well. And I say to her, you could be an F1 strategist, do maths at uni and do engineering.
Please get her to come see us at Girls on Track events out. It's fantastic. Just to answer the rest of your question, we've got some other development programs around. First year introductory into motorsport, a chance for kids as young as 12 to be able to actually drive for the first time. We've got the Gold program, which I talked about before, which is early education and the ability to attach it to STEM-related activities. So there's a number of things that we do that are part of development, but I think we're really just, to some extent, while some of them have been around for a little while, we're almost just getting underway, because I think there's a lot more that we can do to really industrialize participation, really make it as accessible as possible, and really show people that regardless of whatever interest you have with motorsport, there's a home for you with us in some form. It's really important to us, and I think for me, for us, for the board, for a part of our strategy, participation development is how we future-proof the sport, because the more people coming in and engaging with this as their primary sport instead of going off to, we love the ball sports, but we don't want everyone to go off and play football and cricket and soccer and tennis, and unless we want them to come to us as well. So all of this is core to our mission as Motorsport Australia.
Sunil, what about you? You've been in the role for 18 months, give or take. What was your career path that led you to become the CEO of Motorsport Australia?
Wasn't planned up until relatively soon before I accepted the very kind offer to join Motorsport Australia. Previously, I've always had a long-term interest in motorsport. It's always been my big passion, and the major interest for me around sports has been motorsport all my life. I don't quite know why, because it didn't come from family, because none of my family really know, or might be curious about what I do for a living, but haven't otherwise really provided that connection. I just had it anyway. But most of my career has been probably one of two big buckets. One has been around insurance and risk management. I've done a lot of work here in Australia and internationally. I grew up in Melbourne, but I spent a long time living in the UK, where I studied and worked for about 13 years. And my work there was with many of the insurance and risk businesses, as well as here in Australia. So I have some understanding of risk management, which is quite useful given the line of sport work we're in, and a reasonably strong understanding of insurance, which is also quite fundamental to the Motorsport Australia proposition to the sport. The other thing I did a bit was consulting. So I was a management consultant for many years, helping organisations with strategic change delivery, taking a strategic plan and then trying to execute on it. I was roaming around the world doing those activities for the last sort of 30 odd years. And then...
What? Wait, 30 years? You look like you're 25. No offence, but...
I wouldn't take offence to that.
Do I have a special filter on the camera? Clearly it's doing its job to make me look vastly younger than I am, or your screen needs a bit of a clean. It's been about that, I think. So
wow.
The great Eugenia Rocker, who was my predecessor in the role, decided to hang on the belt towards the middle of 2023. I think he announced that. And then I just got a phone call from somebody who was just looking at who might be interested in applying. I think people knew me from motorsport because I was at the time involved in state level racing, which I continue to be involved in, and people knew my background. So I had a few chats, then went further than I thought it would, got more and more excited about the role and more interested in the opportunity of the role and the opportunity to do something really rare in life, which is to connect passion in your profession. I thought it was a real privilege to have that opportunity, and therefore it was just an easy decision for me to make. It's really good fun being involved in something that you're passionate about. It's been a great 18 months, and I'm really pleased to be here.
Oh, which is exactly why we do this podcast, because it's our passion. So we just need to get into the career and earning part of that sorted.
It must be so fun for you now. You've connected your passion and your career, and you're helping people do that now. So it must be really rewarding to work on that when you've just done that.
Yeah, I think rewarding is really the right word, because this is a purpose-led organisation. It is very much about our mission for the sport, and everybody here, even if they haven't come from motorsport, although a lot of them have, everyone has this mission around protecting and growing the sport. It's very purpose-led. We love bringing new people into the sport. We love the level of inclusivity that you feel. Anyone who has an interest or a love for the sport is welcome in motorsport. My experience of that has been quite profound. It's been quite significant, and it's enduring and it's consistent. That doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you do, what you believe, what you don't believe. Everyone who comes to the sport with that interest and excitement and connection and passion is just warmly welcomed. The more, it's a really nice place to be. It's really good fun. And the team I get to work with every day are just fantastic to work with.
I know that in my rally days, and even working at state level, rallying as well, you'd interview drivers for media releases and you'd say, what is it that you love about rallying? And they would all say every single time, without a doubt, it's the camaraderie. It's that feeling of connectedness that you've mentioned, the community. And especially at the lower levels of motorsport, you know, someone needs a spare tyre or they need a tool, they'll just go borrow it from another team. Like, they all help each other, even though they're competing against each other. I don't know if it's unique to motorsport, but it's a really lovely aspect of motorsport. Getting back to racing, so you mentioned that very briefly, Sunil. Like, you're a racer. Tell us about your racing career. You said you didn't come from a motorsport family. I didn't come from a motorsport family. My family is still confused as to what I do, and why I'm involved and where this passion comes from. But
what this racing thing is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get into it?
So I think we can start a small club of people whose families don't understand what they do. It's just you and I think, at the moment. So I've always had a love of racing, as we've talked about, and I've always had an interest. And I think I follow a particularly untypical journey. I think a lot of people take that interest and then they might do a track day, or they might have an opportunity to be at a circuit, and then they just take the next step and the next step. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a helmet and a harness in a race car and the light's about to go green, and off you go. The only thing that's different for me is that my first racing was on motorbikes. So I started racing bikes when I lived in the UK. So we're going to go back 20 years or so. And I raced motorbikes for 8 years through British Thunder Sports, which is like a production bike with a few modifications. 1000cc, it's pretty quick. We got to race on all sorts of different fantastic circuits. Used to go around Europe racing on some of the F1 tracks. Was a pretty amazing experience. You get to a certain point in your life when you work out that the risk reward of motorbike racing might not stack up like it used to. So I stopped that for a little bit, and then I still love it. I still love the bikes. I still follow them closely. But we got to the point of thinking a cage and a harness was a good idea. Days I run an old spec Porsche Cup car. For those who might want to know the details, and that's probably not that many, but it's a 2013 997.2 Porsche Cup car. It was the 2013 Carrera Cup car. It's a sequential shift, left-hand drive, hand-built race car with the right driver, which is clearly not me. It's quite fast. I often say the major weak point in that package is the driver. If we could get something like in it, we might win some races, but otherwise we're happy with the midfield. It's still great fun. I recommend it to everyone. Amateur level grassroots racing is great fun. It's a great experience. It's a great social activity. And I love doing it when I get the chance to do it.
It's also great to watch, though. All the support categories, we're talking about Formula One. A lot of people watch that. But then to watch, like if you go to the Formula One, like Di did in Melbourne just recently, and actually watch all of the support races, like don't disregard those.
I think you're right. A lot of the people come to watch the supercars and the Porsches, and they're super fun. They're super fast. We say, look, 80% of racing in Australia is state and club level racing. It's amateur racing. It's where most of the categories are, it's where most of the people are. And it's just, we'd always encourage people to come watch it because it's a great spectacle.
Yeah, like you said, if you want to get involved, it's a very welcoming community, and there's always somebody willing to teach you something if you want to learn. Like I've been offered to be taught to co-drive. I'm too much of a control freak, I think, to do that. But, there's always someone willing to help.
Even if you're just wanting to understand motorsports a little bit better, if you're kind of looking at motorsports and going, looks interesting, just asking people questions, they're more than happy to explain to you what's happening on track, what's happening, why they're doing this, what this is. So, and that's how you get interested, and that's how you get hooked on all sports. I had someone teach me tennis that way, and now I love watching the tennis. That's how I learned about motorsports, was just asking questions, and then realized that, oh God, I love this.
Speaking of love, we both love Formula One. Sunil, you're a racer. You must love Formula One as well. And in the role as CEO, what's the coolest thing you get to do on a Grand Prix weekend? Something that would make all of your friends just totally jealous.
I feel bad to say this because it's pretty cool, but I have the opportunity with my access and accreditation at Formula One to be in the F1 paddock. So the ability to just walk through the paddock and seeing people who are just heroes of the sport in all the different roles, but particularly the drivers, obviously. Yeah. Very top echelon of the sport. Having access to the paddock and being a part of that world I feel is a real privilege.
Oh, it is.
So cool.
I think that's everyone's dream, right? To be able to walk through the paddock and see all these people that you watch on an almost weekly basis during the season. Then oh gosh, that would be the dream.
They're just the nicest people. They're just genuinely nice people. Everybody I met so far, at all levels of the sport really, but particularly in F1, they are all lovely people. And yes, I think I did how many 20 or so Australian Grand Prix just in the stands. So to be able to walk through the paddock and do this as part of my role, well, it'll never get old. It's
Yeah. Oh, so good. Sunil, this is the final 3 questions that we ask all of our guests. If you could travel for a holiday to any Formula One race destination, whether it's race week or not, a current destination or a former destination, which would you choose and why?
Well, that's just an interesting question. I'm probably the only person that's going to say Spa, Francorchamps in Belgium.
Not the only.
One of two. One of two.
It's a great track. I love that track. So I was fortunate enough to race it once on bikes. The amazing elevation and length and speed of the track, just the forest, its own sort of sub-weather climate where it will be raining on one corner and sunny and dry on another. It's just an amazing place to be. So yes, I love Spa. I would be very happy to go there for a holiday.
Love it.
Good answer. The second question, if you could holiday with any Formula One driver, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Michael Schumacher was my all-time racing hero. Loved the sport through the Schumacher era, mid to late 90s, and then through the Ferrari stage in the 2000s up to 2004 when he won the championship. So I'm a huge fan from my back.
I'm sure he has plenty of stories to tell as well.
It's a great pleasure of meeting Mick at the Race of Champions recently. Mick Schumacher, his son, who is just the most lovely young man. And I admired my own restraint by not oversharing my love of father's career and didn't show him with a signed Schumacher picture I have on my wall at home, things like that. It was admirable restraint. You'll be glad to know.
Just before we dive into the third question, can we just segue into Race of Champions? That was an event that I would have loved to have gone to. How did it go, Race of Champions? First time in Australia?
First time in Australia, spectacularly successful. It was also a great way to just introduce people to motorsport who otherwise wouldn't know because of the star power of the people there. Some of the biggest names in world motorsport. And then this utterly unique format of a temporary circuit built in a stadium, and they're going up against each other in the same vehicle. Who's fastest? Who's the best? The answer is Sebastian Loeb. Yet again, the 9-time world champion is still unbelievably fast. I've seen actually Race of Champions in both. I saw it in Wembley back in 2007, but in Paris. Similar format here in Sydney, but first time in Australia. First time to run for a couple of years and first time to run on tarmac for a few years. Really a great platform to build on. We're very keen for them to try and come back again. It was extraordinary to be part of it. So it was really great.
Yeah. And for me, watching Race of Champions was actually, it was such a great introduction to all these drivers that I personally don't really know. I really enjoyed watching it myself. I would have liked to have gone too, Di, but, Norway. Final question. It's a food-related question. If you're going to cook any meal from any cuisine of any of the destinations that the Formula One currently goes to or has previously been to, what would you cook? It's a big question.
A big question, and I answer it advisedly because anyone who's had the misfortune of tasting my cooking would know this is not a strength of mine, right? Sometimes you get to a point in life when you know what you're good at and you know what you should ask others to in with their expertise, and I think we're in that area. So under advisement, I would actually, perhaps people might nominate things like Italy or France or something like that because the cuisines are all amazing. I might say if I can channel a Formula One destination of the recent past, I would say Malaysia, because having been in Kuala Lumpur not too long ago and just having a chance to have a couple of days there and try some of the different restaurants and food, it's fantastic foods here.
Yeah.
And it has a great racetrack. So what's not to like? My answer would be Malaysia.
So you're in Malaysia recently. All right, let's have a little look at that. So is there a chance that the Formula One is going back to Malaysia?
That's an interesting question. I wasn't there for work. I was on the way back from somewhere and just stopped for about 36 hours.
Oh, well, I love your answer. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. What a great chat and what fabulous insights into what Motorsport Australia is all about, what it does for anybody that's got an inkling of interest in motorsport or that is fully invested in motorsport. There's a place for you, and Motorsport Australia is there to help. So that's brilliant. So with that, Sunil, Thank you so much for spending time chatting with us.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. It's been good fun.
All right. Thank you so much for listening, guys. If you enjoyed our podcast, please leave us a rating or a comment or both on any of your favorite podcast listening apps. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. We've got fun clips going up there. You can also email us at andawaywegof1podcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Oh, we would love to hear from you. Thank you very much, Sunil, CEO of Motorsport Australia. Thank you, Mon, and thank you for having us in your ears. Until next week, and until lights out.
It's lights out and away we go!
And Away We Go podcast is produced by Diane Bortoletto and Monique Ciccato.
Let's do it.